Hi team, we're just going to finish example 2.27 today. This is an exercise that I left for you to do at home. I've started off by filling in the truth values in different combinations for P and Q in the same order that I always do. And you'll recall that when you're trying to write down the truth values for a P implies Q statement, that the only time P implies Q is false is where the P is true and the Q is false. So it's false here. If it's true for P and true for Q, then that's also true. But if your P, your antecedent, is false, then it doesn't matter whether the consequent here, your Q, is true or false. That's always going to return a true value. So this is the P implies Q, and we've done that many times before, so there's nothing new in that. Okay, so now I have to fill in the truth values for P and P implies Q. So I don't need the Q column for this part of the exercise. So what I'm going to do, just because I can with my little gaddy, I'm going to rub out the Q's for you so that you can't see that and it doesn't get in the way of what we're doing. So we're looking for P and P implies Q. And remember, when you've got the conjunction, this is only going to be true when P is Q and when P implies Q is true. So in the first row, this is going to be true. In the second row, it's going to be false because only P is true, not P implies Q. In the third row, it's going to be false because only P implies Q is true and not P. And in the fourth row, it's also false because only P implies Q is true and not P. So for P and P implies Q, this is only going to be true in row 1. Okay, so now in the fourth row, we're looking for, this is my antecedent, P and P implies Q. So this is like, if we call that whole statement an R, this is like an R implies Q. So I'm going to put my Q's back in the same order that I did before because we're going to need to see what my Q's were. What we're not going to need to see when we're trying to work out this column is the actual values of P implies Q. So I'm going to rub those out so you don't get confused. And I don't need P either, so I'm going to rub that out so you don't get confused. So this column is my R, and this of course is my Q. So I'm looking for R implies Q. So my R is true, my Q is true, so that's going to give me a true value. My R is false, so therefore it doesn't matter what my Q value is, that's still going to give me a true value. Again, my R is false, and it doesn't matter what this is then, so I'm going to get a true value, and here my R is false. So that also returns a true value. So this indeed is a tautology, because remember, the definition of a tautology was if all the values in the column were true. So all the truth values are true. So that's the definition of a tautology. So that's a fairly simple example. If you had trouble with that, then you should bring your work into a consultation session so we can get that sorted out. Otherwise, we'll see you tomorrow.